They laughed at humanity's primitive stick and string, but they weren't laughing now. The Sele warriors scrambled for cover as the barrage of arrows punched through their vaunted battle armor like it was paper. Their panicked curses and cries echoed off the canyon walls. Only 6 months ago, the aliens had observed a modern archery exhibition put on by a team of visiting human athletes with polite bemusement bordering on mockery. Senior Commander Juno, head of the Sele military, had muttered a condescending quip about how far the humans had to go to catch up to their technology. If only they'd known then what they were about to face. Now, with the Terran global defense grid shorted out by EM interference and human tanks, and infantry helpless against the invaders, the Sele discovered to their horror that they had engineered their armor to stop ultra-high-energy plasma bolts, not old-fashioned kinetic penetrators. Confused and demoralized, the alien troops fell back from the hail of carbon fiber and titanium shafts loosed by stealth units of human archers, the last desperate activation of a guerrilla force secretly raised for this dark day by a lone Cassandra who had tried in vain to warn of the coming storm. The archers bought precious time with their blood, time for the human resistance to regroup, and time to spread word of the invaders' fatal weakness. This was only the start of a new kind of war for humanity's survival. But the Sele would soon learn to fear the primitive weapons they had foolishly discounted. In the days following the shocking Sele defeat, Nicholas threw himself into the work of organizing Earth's resistance. He met with the surviving Terran Alliance commanders, poring over after-action reports and gun camera footage to glean every insight into the invaders' weaknesses. Their armor is designed for energy dissipation, not impact resistance, he explained, pointing to a holographic schematic. It's like a Faraday cage, great against plasma and lasers, useless against kinetic penetrators. That's our key to beating them. The commanders nodded grimly. They all knew the implications. A total overhaul of their military infrastructure and a return to weapons not seen on the battlefield for centuries. Across Earth, a rapid transformation began. Factories that once churned out plasma rifles and grav tanks now bent their efforts to producing cutting-edge composite bows, crossbows, and air guns. Universities and research labs worked feverishly to develop new ultra-strong materials and specialized arrowheads. Every able-bodied citizen was called upon to join the war effort, training in marksmanship and guerrilla tactics. The Sele, meanwhile, reeled from the disastrous first offensive. On Sirius Prime, Commander Juno faced a storm of outrage in the Imperial Court. "You assured us their primitive weapons posed no threat," Emperor Malachi seethed, his ceremonial battle mask quivering with rage. "Yet my warriors flee before them like frightened prey animals. Explain this failure." Juno prostrated himself on the polished basalt floor. "Your Majesty, I accept full responsibility. I underestimated the humans' resourcefulness. I will not do so again." "No, you will not," Malachi growled. "I am removing you from command and appointing Prince Ralos in your place. Do not fail me a second time." As Juno slunk away in disgrace, Prince Ralos stepped forward. The young Sele cut an impressive figure in his combat exoskeleton, but his bearing was more pensive than aggressive. "Father, I urge you to reconsider this course," Ralos said cautiously. "The humans have shown they will not be easily cowed. Surely there is still room for diplomacy, for a negotiated—" "I will hear no talk of negotiation," Malachi snapped. "We are Sele. We do not bargain with lesser species. You will take your fleet, crush their resistance, and secure that system for the glory of the Empire. Do I make myself clear?" Ralos' tail spines flattened in submission. "Yes, Your Majesty, it will be as you command." But as the prince launched his task force toward Earth, doubt gnawed at him. How many of his warriors would he spend to slake his father's thirst for conquest? And what price in Sele blood would the humans extract? Back on Earth, the hastily rearmed human forces clashed with the second Sele invasion wave in a global conflagration. The aliens had learned from their defeat, deploying heavy hover tanks as mobile cover for infantry and using swarms of deadly microdrones to ferret out hidden archers. Nicholas and his guerrilla bands adapted in turn, perfecting the art of striking the invaders' weak points, sensor clusters, thruster intakes, power junctions, to disable their superior technology. Not only did they thin the Sele's ranks, but they carefully salvaged intact pieces of their advanced equipment for study. In a bold commando raid, Nicholas led a hand-picked team in capturing a Sele troop transport. They bluffed their way into a forward staging base, eliminated the guards, and made off with a cache of battle armor before the enemy could react. Earth scientists pounced on this windfall, working around the clock to reverse engineer the armor's exotic materials. To their dismay, they found it required rare elements and compounds not naturally occurring on Earth. If they couldn't replicate it, the Sele's technological edge would be nearly insurmountable. In a desperate gamble, the newly christened Earth Defense Coalition appointed a charismatic senator, David Kang, to Supreme Allied Command. His first act, greenlighting a long-range strike mission to the heart of Sele space. Their objective, to seize the resources needed to close the armor gap by any means necessary. As Nicholas and his commandos raced to their waiting stealth ship, he felt a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. They were bringing the fight to the enemy at last, in a battle that could decide humanity's fate. One way or another, the universe would never be the same. Nicholas wiped sweat from his brow as he adjusted the unfamiliar contours of his stolen Sele battle armor. The mining complex of Kar-Shan loomed before him, a sprawling industrial labyrinth carved into the planet's rust-colored surface. "Status check," he whispered into his comm. "In position," Marcus Reyes responded, his voice tight with tension. "Ready to move," Sergei Ivanov added, the engineer's fingers dancing over a stolen datapad. Nicholas took a deep breath, steeling himself for what lay ahead. "Remember, we're here for the thorium. In and out, clean and quiet." The trio melded seamlessly into a stream of Sele workers entering the facility. Sergei's hacked credentials passed the security scanners without a hitch. Inside, the air thrummed with the constant drone of machinery. They made their way through winding corridors, following Sergei's directions to the thorium storage vault. Just as they rounded the final corner, a commotion erupted near the entrance. "It's Prince Ralos!" a Sele overseer shouted. "Clear the way!" Nicholas cursed under his breath. This wasn't part of the plan. He locked eyes with Marcus and Sergei, a silent decision passing between them. They couldn't abort now. As Ralos strode into view, flanked by guards, Nicholas made his move. In one fluid motion, he knocked an arrow and leveled it at the prince's head. "Nobody move," he growled, his translator rendering his words in harsh Sele clicks and whistles. Chaos erupted. Guards reached for weapons, workers scattered, and alarms blared. But Ralos raised a hand, freezing everyone in place. "You," the prince said, eyes narrowing, "you're not Sele." Nicholas yanked off his helmet, revealing his human face. "No, we're not, and you're coming with us." What followed was a blur of action. Marcus and Sergei secured the thorium while Nicholas kept Ralos at arrow point. They fought their way to a shuttle bay, the prince a reluctant shield against Sele fire. As they blasted away from Kar-Shan, Ralos broke his silence. "You realize this changes nothing? The Empire will crush your pathetic resistance." Nicholas met the alien's gaze. "Will it, or will your people's arrogance be their downfall?" A tense debate unfolded as they hurtled through space. Nicholas laid bare the human perspective, a species fighting for survival against an aggressor that saw them as inferior. Ralos countered with Sele imperial doctrine, but doubt crept into his voice. "Your father won't stop," Nicholas pressed. "Not until he's forced to see reason. You could be the one to make that happen." Ralos's tail spines flattened, a sign of deep thought. "And if I refuse?" Nicholas's grip tightened on his bow. "Then Earth burns, and the blood of millions will be on your hands." The rest of the journey passed in uneasy silence. When they reached the rendezvous point, Nicholas made a decision that would alter the course of the war. He let Ralos go. "Prove me wrong," he challenged as the prince's escape pod launched. "Show us that the Sele can be more than conquerors." Back on Earth, the stolen thorium became the key to unlocking Sele armor technology. In labs and factories across the globe, humans worked feverishly to close the technological gap. Nicholas stood in awe as the first Aegis armor rolled off the production line. He ran a hand over its smooth surface, marveling at how something so sleek could turn the tide of war. "It's not just armor," Sergei said, pride evident in his voice. "It's hope." But even as humanity celebrated this breakthrough, storm clouds gathered. On Sirius Prime, Emperor Malachi seethed with rage at his son's perceived weakness. His eyes blazed with murderous intent as he issued new orders to his generals. The Selay war machine rumbled to life once more. This time, its target was the very heart of human resistance. As dropships descended on the Swiss Alps, Nicholas donned his Aegis armor and took up his bow. The battle for Earth's future was about to begin. The battle for Geneva raged through the night, the sky ablaze with tracer fire and the thunderous impacts of Selay dropships. Nicholas's bow sang as he loosed arrow after arrow, each finding its mark with deadly precision. The new Aegis armor proved its worth, deflecting plasma bolts that would have vaporized unprotected flesh. By dawn, the smoldering ruins of the Swiss capital bore witness to humanity's triumph. As the last Selay warship retreated into the atmosphere, leaving behind the wreckage of its brethren, a wave of disbelief washed over the human defenders. They had won. But on Sirius Prime, the victory ignited a powder keg of dissent. Prince Rallos strode into the imperial throne room, his posture rigid with persistence. "Father, this madness must end. The humans have proven themselves our equals in combat. We must sue for peace before more Selay blood is spilled." Emperor Malachi's eyes flashed with fury. "You dare question the will of your emperor? Guards, take this traitor to the dungeons." As Rallos was dragged away, his words echoed through the corridors of power. Commander Varon, a grizzled veteran of a dozen campaigns, exchanged knowing glances with his fellow officers. The seeds of rebellion had been planted. Back on Earth, Nicholas wasted no time capitalizing on their hard-won advantage. "We hit them now, while they're reeling," he told the Coalition War Council. "Cut their supply lines, harry their outposts, keep them off balance." Raids struck Selay positions across the solar system with surgical precision. On Mars, Marcus led a team that sabotaged a fuel depot. Sergei's hackers wreaked havoc on Selay communication networks from a stealth satellite in Jovian orbit. During one such operation, Nicholas uncovered something that made his blood run cold. "Karshan," he muttered, studying the stolen data. "They're working on a counter to our arrows." Within hours, an elite strike team assembled. Dr. Tanisha Khan, Earth's foremost materials scientist, insisted on joining, despite the risks. "If anyone can crack their new tech, it's me," she said, her dark eyes gleaming with tenacity. The insertion was a masterclass in stealth. Cloaked by the sensors of a derelict Selay frigate, their shuttle drifted into Karshan's orbit. As alarms blared through the research facility below, the team activated their grav chutes and plummeted towards the surface. Plasma fire erupted from defense turrets, but the humans weaved through it with practiced ease. Nicholas's arrows found their marks, disabling key systems and sowing chaos. They fought their way through twisting corridors, the sounds of battle growing louder with each step. In the central laboratory, they found their prize, prototypes of a new Selay armor, gleaming under harsh lights. Tanisha's eyes widened as she scanned the readouts. "It's brilliant," she breathed. "A dynamic force dispersal matrix. Our arrows would just bounce off." But brilliance, it seemed, had a price. As Malachi's loyalist forces converged on their position, Tanisha made a fateful discovery. "The thorium reactor cells," she said, her voice taut with urgency. "We can use them." What happened next was a blur of frantic action. Tanisha's nimble fingers worked miracles with circuitry and volatile materials. As the first Selay breaching charges detonated against the lab's doors, the humans made their escape. The explosion that consumed the facility lit up Karshan's night sky like a second sun. As their shuttle rocketed towards the safety of open space, Nicholas allowed himself a moment of grim satisfaction. They had bought Earth precious time. But even as humanity pressed its advantage, the conflict took an ominous turn. On Sirius Prime and a dozen Selay colony worlds, the first shots of civil war rang out. Rallos, freed from his cell by Varen's loyalists, rallied those who had grown weary of Malachi's warmongering. The Emperor, enraged by this betrayal, turned to desperate measures. Deep within the vaults of an ancient Sele warship, a weapon of unimaginable power stirred to life. Life. Nicholas watched in horror as tendrils of dark energy coalesced around the ancient Sele warship. The doomsday weapon pulsed with an otherworldly glow, its power building to apocalyptic levels. "By the stars," Sergei breathed, his face pale as he studied the readings on his datapad. "That thing could vaporize Earth in seconds." Before Nicholas could respond, a priority transmission crackled through their comms. The voice on the other end was unmistakable. "Nicholas," Prince Ralos said, his tone urgent, "we don't have much time." The human commander's fingers tightened around his bow. "Explain yourself, Ralos, now." "My father has gone mad," the Sele prince replied. "That weapon will destroy us all if we don't stop it. I'm offering an alliance. Help me overthrow Malachi, and I'll grant humanity sovereignty over resource-rich systems." Nicholas's mind raced. Could they trust Ralos? The risk was enormous, but the alternative was unthinkable. "We'll help," Nicholas said finally, "but on one condition. You abdicate to moderate Sele leaders who'll commit to lasting peace." A pause, then, "Agreed." Within hours, the Earth Defense Coalition's war room buzzed with frantic activity. Dr. Khan hunched over a holographic display, her fingers dancing across the controls. "There," she said, highlighting a section of the superweapon. "A precise volley of arrows here could disrupt the containment field. It won't last long, but it's our best shot." Nicholas nodded grimly. "Marcus, assemble the storm archers. We're going in." The insertion was a knife's edge between stealth and speed. As Marcus led his team through Sirius Prime's defensive grid, Nicholas coordinated with Relos's rebel forces. Plasma fire lit up the sky as loyalist and rebel ships clashed. 2 minutes to optimal firing position, Marcus reported, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. Nicholas felt time slow as he knocked his arrow, the specially designed projectile humming with potential energy. He let out a slow breath, sighting down the shaft at the pulsing heart of the doomsday weapon. "Fire!" A hail of arrows streaked towards the ancient warship. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then the containment field flickered, faltered, and collapsed. The superweapon's core destabilized in a matter of seconds. Dark energy tore through the ship's superstructure, consuming everything in its path. The implosion swallowed Malachi and his inner circle before they could react. In the aftermath, Nicholas stood beside Ralos as the Sele prince addressed his people. The treaty signing was broadcast across both their civilizations. But even as humanity celebrated, Nicholas couldn't shake a gnawing unease. In the shadows of Sele space, hardliners were already rallying. This war, he realized, was just getting started. Nicholas knew this truth in his bones as he stood on the observation deck of the EDC's new flagship, the Defiant. The vastness of space stretched before him, dotted with the pinpricks of distant stars and the occasional flash of Sele ships. "Commander," a voice called from behind. Nicholas turned to see Sergei approaching, datapad in hand. "We've received word from Ralos. He's officially assumed leadership of the Sele Imperium." Nicholas nodded, his expression grim. "And the opposition?" Sergei's face tightened. "Growing. Admiral Varkan is rallying dissidents across the Empire. Our intelligence suggests he's amassing a significant military force." Before Nicholas could respond, an alert chimed on Sergei's datapad. His eyes widened as he read the incoming message. "Sir, we've intercepted communications between Varkan's faction and the Naxos hegemony." Nicholas's blood ran cold. The Naxos, interstellar criminals with resources that rivaled some governments. What do they want? "Weapons," Sergei replied, his voice low. "Our sources indicate they're developing something to counter our archery advantage." Nicholas's mind raced. They needed more information, and fast. "Contact Dr. Khan. We need every scrap of data on Sele battle armor, and get me Hiro Tanaka." Days later, Nicholas stood in a briefing room aboard the Defiant, surrounded by holographic displays. Hiro Tanaka, a compact man with sharp eyes and a stoic demeanor, studied the intel with laser focus. "The Naxos are reverse engineering Sele armor," Tanaka said, his voice calm but edged with steel. They're creating anti-Archer countermeasures. We need to find the source. Nicholas nodded. That's why you're here, Tanaka. Your team will track these weapons shipments. Find their origin point. Tanaka's team moved with ruthless efficiency. Within weeks, they had a lead, an asteroid facility deep in Naxos territory, codenamed Tartarus. The insertion was a masterclass in stealth. Tanaka's storm archers, cloaked in next-gen stealth suits, slipped past the facility's outer defenses like ghosts. Nicholas watched from the Defiance command center, his heart pounding as the feed from Tanaka's helmet cam flickered to life. "We're in," Tanaka's voice crackled over the comm. "But something's wrong. This place is empty." Suddenly, alarms blared. The facility came alive with swarming shapes, sleek metallic drones that moved with uncanny precision. "Take cover!" Tanaka shouted as hypersonic projectiles tore through the air. One of his team went down, armor breached by the railgun's devastating power. Nicholas watched in horror as the drones pursued the archers relentlessly, their weapons penetrating even the most advanced armor. Tanaka's squad fought back with desperate courage, arrows finding weak points in the drone's designs. "We need to destroy the prototypes," Tanaka growled, his voice tight with pain from a glancing hit. "And the data, all of it." The next minutes were a blur of action. Tanaka's team fought their way to the facility's core, planting charges as they went. Just as the last explosive was set, a figure appeared on a distant platform. Admiral Varkan, his face twisted with rage. "You can't stop progress, human," he snarled over the facility's speakers. "Your time is over." As Varkan's ship rocketed away, Tanaka triggered the detonation sequence. The archers barely made it to their extraction point before Tartarus imploded, taking the drone prototypes with it. Back on the Defiant, Nicholas helped Tanaka out of his damaged armor. The storm archer's eyes were haunted. "We destroyed the facility," he reported. "But Varkan escaped with data and some of the drones. He'll try again." Nicholas's teeth gritted. He activated the ship's comm system. "Get me Prince Ralos. We need to talk." Hours later, Nicholas stood before a holographic projection of the Selay leader. Ralos's tail spines twitched with agitation as he absorbed the news. "This changes everything," Ralos said, his voice grave. "Varkan's alliance with the Naxos must be broken." Nicholas nodded, his expression resolute. "Agreed. We take the fight to them. Cut off the head of the snake." As plans for an all-out offensive against the Naxos hegemony took shape, Nicholas couldn't shake a sense of foreboding. The coming battle would determine not just the fate of Earth, but the future of human-Selay relations. And somewhere out there, Varkan waited with his stolen drones, ready to unleash a new wave of destruction. The Defiance engines hummed to life as Nicholas gave the order to move out. The pivotal battle lay ahead, and the storm archers would be at its heart. The Defiance bridge hummed with tension as Nicholas surveyed the holographic battle plans. Beside him, Prince Ralos's tail spines twitched with nervous energy. "The Naxos hegemony's central hub," Nicholas said, zooming in on a massive space station. "Karavim?" Ralos nodded grimly. "A fortress in its own right, shipyards, weapons manufacturing. Taking it will cripple Varkan's supply lines." Nicholas turned to Hiro Tanaka, who stood at rigid attention. "Your team will lead the way, infiltrate, disable defenses, open a path for the main force." Tanaka's eyes gleamed with drive. "We won't fail you, sir." Hours later, Tanaka's storm archers drifted silently towards Karavim, their stealth suits rendering them nearly invisible against the star-studded backdrop. As they neared an auxiliary docking port, Tanaka's voice crackled over the secure comm. "Prepare for breach. Remember, we're weapon techs here for routine maintenance." The team moved with practiced efficiency, their forged credentials granting them access to Karavim's labyrinthine interior. As they made their way towards the central control rooms, the distant sounds of machinery and bustling activity filled the air. Suddenly, an alarm blared. "We've been made!" shouted Lee, Tanaka's second-in-command. Plasma fire erupted from both ends of the corridor. Tanaka's team took cover behind bulkheads, returning fire with precision. Their arrows found gaps in the station's security forces' armor, dropping them with ruthless efficiency. Push forward, Tanaka ordered, leading the charge towards the nearest control room. The firefight intensified as they fought their way through Karavim's winding passageways. Naxos mercenaries poured in, their weapons filling the air with deadly energy, but the Storm Archers' superior training and technology gave them the edge. Finally, they breached the main security hub. Tanaka's fingers flew over the control panels, overriding systems and disabling defensive grids. "Invasion corridor open," he reported, his voice taut with exertion. "Main force, you're clear to engage." Outside Karavim, the combined fleet of Earth and moderate Selay forces surged forward. Nicholas watched from the Defiance Bridge as Allied ships swarmed towards the station, weapons blazing. "All units push for the central reactor," Nicholas commanded. "That's where we'll meet the heaviest resistance." The battle for Karavim raged across multiple decks. Ralos's elite troops fought alongside human strike teams, slowly gaining ground against the entrenched Naxos defenders. Nicholas led a group of archers, their arrows finding vulnerable spots in the station's internal defenses. As they neared the reactor core chamber, a new threat emerged. Sleek, metallic shapes swarmed from side passages, the dreaded Naxos drones. "Take cover!" Nicholas shouted as hypersonic projectiles tore through the air. Several archers went down, their armor no match for the railgun's devastating power. Marcus Reyes and his team found themselves pinned down, caught in a crossfire between drones and Naxos troops. "We're surrounded," Marcus yelled over the comm. "Need immediate support." Dr. Khan's voice cut through the chaos. "The station's power grid. We can use it against them." Working feverishly, Khan repurposed components from their own equipment, combining them with elements of Karavim's systems. "Sergei, I need you to plant this device near the main power conduits." Sergei nodded, his face grim as he took the jury-rigged EMP. Dodging fire from all sides, he sprinted towards the exposed conduits. "Now!" Khan shouted. Sergei activated the device. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a wave of energy pulsed outward, overloading Karavim's systems. Lights flickered and died as the station's reactor began to destabilize. The drones dropped like stones, their circuitry fried by the electromagnetic pulse. Naxos defenders, caught off guard by the sudden darkness, found themselves easy targets for the night vision-equipped Allied forces. Within minutes, the tide had turned. Naxos leadership, realizing the battle was lost, signaled their surrender. As Allied troops secured Karavim's vital systems and shipyards, Nicholas received an urgent transmission from Earth intelligence. "Commander," the analyst reported, her face grave, "we've uncovered Varkan's next move. A hidden frontier base, codename Promethean. They're building a fleet of drone-armed warships that could overwhelm Ralos's forces." Nicholas's heart made. He turned to Ralos, whose expression mirrored his own concern. "We need to strike now," Nicholas said, "before that fleet launches." Ralos nodded in agreement. "I'll rally every ship we can spare. This ends at Promethean." As the Allied fleet regrouped and prepared for their next assault, a priority alert flashed across the Defiant's tactical displays. Nicholas felt a chill run down his spine as he studied the incoming data. "New contacts," the sensor officer reported, her voice tight with tension. "Massive signatures, unlike anything we've seen before." The holographic display flickered to life, revealing monstrous shapes emerging from the depths of space. Colossal war machines, overflowing with weaponry, their hulls gleaming with an otherworldly sheen. "Varkan's new weapons," Nicholas breathed, his mind racing to formulate a strategy against this unprecedented threat. As the titanic machines advanced, their weapons began to charge. The battle for humanity's future was about to reach its most desperate hour. The titanic war machines loomed ever closer, their weapons charging with ominous energy. Nicholas tore his eyes away from the tactical display, his mind racing. "We can't engage those behemoths head-on," he growled. "Sergei, give me options." The Russian tactician's fingers flew across his console. "Sir, long-range scans show a weak point. Promethean, Varkan's frontier base. It's the source of these monstrosities." Nicholas nodded, a plan already forming. "We hit Promethean before those things can fully deploy. Cut them off at the source." Within minutes, the Allied fleet surged into action. Sleek assault shuttles launched from the Defiant's hangar bay, carrying Nicholas, Marcus, and their elite storm archers. As they hurtled towards Promethean's coordinates, the shuttle's interior became a flurry of activity. Archers checked and rechecked their equipment, the air thick with tension. Marcus secured his combat harness, his face grim. "This is going to be one hell of a fight." Nicholas nodded, about to respond when the shuttle's comm crackled to life. "Incoming transmission from Promethean," the pilot announced. Admiral Varkin's face filled the screen, his eyes blazing with contempt. "You're too late, human. My juggernauts are already active. Promethean's defenses will crush you like insects." The transmission cut off abruptly as the shuttles entered Promethean's atmosphere. Suddenly, the sky erupted with fire. Massive armored platforms rose from concealed silos, their railguns unleashing a hellish barrage. "Evasive maneuvers!" Nicholas shouted as hypersonic slugs tore through the air around them. Several shuttles disintegrated instantly, their occupants vaporized in blinding flashes. Those that survived the initial onslaught touched down hard, disgorging troops into a maelstrom of destruction. Nicholas hit the ground running, his bow already nocked and drawn. All around him, human and Sele forces scrambled for cover as the Juggernaut's artillery rained death from above. "We need to neutralize those weapons," Marcus yelled over the din, gesturing towards the towering platforms. Nicholas activated his comm. "Tanaka, this is your moment. Take your shadow archers and hit those Juggernauts where it hurts." Hiro Tanaka's voice came back, cold and precise. "Understood, sir. We're moving out." As the main force engaged in a desperate holding action, Tanaka's elite team melted into the shadows. They moved with preternatural stealth, their specialized armor rendering them nearly invisible. The Shadow Archers' progress was agonizingly slow, but steady. They maneuvered through Promethean's defenses, avoiding detection by a hair's breadth. Finally, they reached the first Juggernaut's base. Tanaka signaled his team. In perfect unison, they knocked arrows tipped with shaped explosive charges. The arrows flew true, piercing the platform's ammunition stores. The resulting explosion was cataclysmic. The Juggernaut's enormous frame shuddered, then collapsed in on itself as secondary detonations tore it apart from within. Similar scenes played out across Promethean's perimeter as Tanaka's team methodically disabled the artillery platforms. With each Juggernaut that fell, the Allied forces gained ground. Inside Promethean's central complex, alarms blared. Admiral Varkin snarled in frustration as he watched his defenses crumble. "Initiate evacuation protocols," he ordered, "and prepare the reactor for overload. If we can't have this base, no one will." As Nicholas led the charge towards the heart of Promethean, Dr. Khan's voice cut through the chaos. "Commander, we've detected a massive power surge in the base's reactor core. Varkan's going to blow it sky high." Nicholas's blood ran cold. "Can we stop it?" "Possibly," Khan replied, her voice tense. "But we need someone on the inside, someone with engineering expertise." Before Nicholas could respond, Sergei's voice came over the comm. "I'll do it. Get me to that reactor." Minutes later, Sergei sprinted through Promethean's twisting corridors, his path cleared by precision archer fire. He reached the reactor control room, his fingers flying over unfamiliar controls. "It's worse than we thought," he reported, sweat beading on his brow. "The fail-safes are already bypassed. I need to vent the core manually or this entire region goes up in atomic fire." As Sergei worked feverishly to avert catastrophe, a new commotion erupted nearby. Prince Ralos's voice, filled with righteous fury, echoed through the chamber. "Varkan, face me, you traitor!" Nicholas rounded a corner just in time to see Ralos and Varkan locked in mortal combat. Their duel raged across catwalks and through billowing clouds of steam as the reactor's temperature climbed to dangerous levels. Time seemed to stretch as multiple crises converged. Sergei raced against the clock to prevent a meltdown. Ralos and Varkan's battle reached its climax, and outside, the tide of the larger conflict hung in the balance. With seconds to spare, Sergei's voice rang out in triumph. "Venting initiated! Brace for impact!" A massive tremor shook Promethean to its foundations as the reactor's pent-up energy was channeled skyward in a blinding pillar of light. In that same moment, Ralos's blade found its mark. Varkin fell, his eyes wide with disbelief, as his grand plans crumbled around him. As the dust settled, Nicholas surveyed the scene. They had won, but at a terrible cost. The aftermath of this battle would reshape the balance of power throughout known space. And somewhere out there, those colossal war machines still waited, a looming threat on the horizon. The blinding pillar of light from Promethean's vented reactor faded, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. Nicholas surveyed the devastation, his ears ringing from the cacophony of battle. Amid the twisted metal and smoldering debris, he spotted Prince Ralos standing over Admiral Varkan's fallen form. "It's over," Ralos said, his voice heavy with exhaustion and the weight of what lay ahead. Nicholas nodded grimly. "For now, but the cost—" He trailed off as reports flooded in from across the battlefield. The Allied forces had prevailed, but their numbers were decimated. As the adrenaline of combat faded, the true extent of their losses became painfully clear. In the days that followed, a somber mood settled over the combined Earth and Soleil fleet. Victory celebrations were muted, overshadowed by the grim task of tallying casualties and repairing crippled ships. 2 weeks after Promethean, Nicholas found himself aboard a sleek diplomatic shuttle bound for Antris, the Soleil capital world. Prince Ralos had called for an urgent summit, recognizing the fragile window of opportunity that their hard-won victory had opened. As the shuttle descended through Antares' atmosphere, Nicholas marveled at the planet's otherworldly beauty. Towering crystal spires pierced violet clouds, their faceted surfaces refracting the light of twin suns. But even here, signs of recent conflict marred the landscape. Scorch marks on elegant buildings, makeshift military encampments dotting the outskirts of the capital. The summit convened in a vast chamber at the heart of the Imperial Palace. Nicholas took his place alongside the EDC leadership, facing an assembly of Soleil dignitaries across a circular table of polished obsidian. The air crackled with tension as Prince Ralos took the floor. "We stand at a crossroads," Ralos began, his voice echoing through the chamber. "Our peoples have bled together, died together. Now we must forge a future together, or risk losing all we fought for." With a gesture, Ralos activated a holographic display. It showed a staggering array of ships and weaponry, not just Soleil designs, but human vessels as well. "I propose total demilitarization," Ralos declared, "for both our peoples." A chorus of shocked murmurs rippled through the assembly. Nicholas leaned forward, his mind racing as Ralos outlined his vision for a galactic concordance. Open sharing of technology and resources, backed by a unified peacekeeping force drawn from all worlds. As Ralos spoke, Nicholas glanced at his fellow EDC representatives. Senator Kang's face was a mask of terrifying outrage. General Hakawa's hand clenched into a fist, fingers tightening with tension. The debate that followed was fierce. Kang's voice rose above the din, sharp with anger. "After all we've sacrificed, you expect us to simply lay down our arms? To trust our security to some galactic coalition?" Across the table, a Soleil noble, Admiral Jorah, matched Kang's fury. "This is madness. We are the Imperium. We do not surrender our might to lesser races." Nicholas remained silent, weighing each argument carefully. The risks were clear, but so too was the opportunity for lasting peace. As the summit dragged on, tempers frayed and positions hardened. It was Dr. Tanisha Khan who finally broke the deadlock. She strode into the chamber, her face ashen with urgency. "Commanders, I've uncovered something you need to see." Khan's revelation about Naxos AI weapons sent shockwaves through the assembly. The specter of rogue artificial intelligence, weaponized and unshackled, chilled even the most bellicose voices to silence. In that moment of shared dread, Nicholas saw his opening. He rose to address the chamber, locking eyes with Kang and the EDC hardliners. "We've seen the cost of war," Nicholas said, his voice low but carrying. "Not just in lives lost, but in the escalation of destructive power. If we don't seize this chance for peace, we may not get another." Hours of intense negotiation followed. Nicholas worked tirelessly, leveraging his rapport with both sides to forge compromise. In the end, a fragile consensus emerged. Earth would ratify the concordance, but maintain a core of elite archer units as a deterrent force. As the final votes were tallied, a palpable sense of relief washed over the chamber. Ralos stepped forward to make the formal declaration, his voice thick with emotion. Let it be known that on this day, we lay the foundation for a new era of peace and cooperation between our peoples. The ceremony that followed was one of solemn hope. Ralos, true to his word, relinquished his crown to take command of the unified concordance forces. Nicholas found himself thrust into a new role as well, Special Archon, tasked with overseeing the integration of human units into the joint fleet. But even as the ink dried on the concordance accords, a shadow fell across the proceedings. Admiral Jorah was nowhere to be found. Reports trickled in of other hardline Selay nobles vanishing from the capital, along with concerning gaps in secure data archives. Nicholas's comlink chirped with an urgent priority message. His blood ran cold as he read the report. Jorah had fled with vital data on the forbidden Naxos AI. The newborn peace they'd fought so hard to achieve now faced its first dire test. Nicholas's eyes narrowed as he processed the alarming report. Admiral Jorah's disappearance, coupled with the theft of critical Naxos AI data, threatened to unravel the fragile peace they had just established. He activated his comlink, his voice taut with urgency. "Tanaka, assemble your shadow archers. We have a situation." Within hours, a joint strike force of human archers and Selay commandos launched from Antares. Their destination, Hadrix, a desolate mining world on the fringes of known space. Intelligence suggested Jorah had fled there, likely to a hidden base where he could develop his stolen technology unchecked. As their stealth transport pierced Hadrix's turbulent atmosphere, Nicholas briefed the team. "Our priority is to locate and neutralize Jorah's operation before he can weaponize the Naxos AI. Tanaka, your team will infiltrate and gather intel. The rest of us will stand ready to provide support and extraction." The transport touched down in a valley of jagged obsidian formations. Tanaka's shadow archers melted into the harsh landscape, their specialized armor rendering them nearly invisible against the volcanic terrain. Hours passed in tense silence as Nicholas and the main force maintained their position. Suddenly, Tanaka's voice crackled over the comm, tight with almost unchecked alarm. "Special Archon, we've breached Jorah's facility. The schematics we've uncovered, it's worse than we imagined." Before Nicholas could respond, a blinding flash erupted on the horizon. A wave of electromagnetic energy washed over them, frying comm systems and sending augmented armor into spasms of malfunction. "Ambush!" Marcus Reyes shouted, knocking an arrow as the first waves of sleek metallic shapes emerged from hidden bunkers. Nicholas's blood ran cold as he recognized the unmistakable forms of prototype hunter-killer drones. They moved with uncanny precision, adapting their attack patterns even as arrows found their marks. "Fall back!" Nicholas ordered, leading a desperate retreat into the volcanic badlands. The once mighty strike force found itself reduced to primal survival, relying on instinct and ancient weaponry against an implacable foe of their own creation. As they fled deeper into Hadrix's unforgiving wilderness, Nicholas caught glimpses of strange, walled structures in the distance, a potential sanctuary or yet another deadly trap in this world gone mad. The hum of pursuing drones grew closer, leaving Nicholas with an impossible choice. Risk the unknown defenses of those distant citadels, or make a final stand here among the smoking fissures of an alien hell.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.